My name is Eleanor Grace. I am 68 years old, and for nearly 5 decades, I lived as a wife, a mother, and the quiet heart of an orchard that held my dreams. My hands, stiff with age and pain, still remember the dawn when I baked bread beside my husband, Richard, and pruned the apple trees under the sun. 3 weeks ago, I buried him, the man who was my world. Yet the morning after his funeral, I discovered a truth that almost broke me. I realized then that I might not have built what I thought I had, and maybe it wasn't enough to hold on to my children. Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more. Richard had died of cancer. 14 long months of watching his strength fade. He whispered to me, "Let the kids live a little longer without the shadow." And so, I carried the pain in silence, praying my children would return to love. But when they arrived for the funeral, I didn't see children mourning their father. I saw strangers who wore business suits like armor. Darren, the eldest, who had left for the city years ago, returned with sharp eyes and sharper words. Samantha, my daughter, moved with grace, but her voice was smooth with practiced charm. They were not here for family, not here for memory, not here for love. They came for something else, and I felt it settle like a storm. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wood Richard and I once polished together. I told them we could sort through his belongings in the morning. It was a small gesture, a mother's way of keeping family close through grief. But when the sun rose and coffee brewed, they came dressed for a meeting, not for remembrance. Darren wore his blazer, Samantha her silk blouse. They looked at me, and Darren said, "Mom, we've been talking." My heart tightened. Darren's words fell heavy. "We think it's time to start settling things. The estate, the business, the house." I blinked, unsure if I heard him right. "Settling," I whispered. Samantha leaned forward, her voice sweet, almost rehearsed. "We just want you comfortable, Mom. There's a retirement home, Sunnyvale Estates. Activities, friends your age. You'll be safe there." Their voices didn't carry love. They carried plans. I stood to clear the plates, hiding the trembling of my hands. Darren slid a folder across the table, his eyes steady. "Dad wanted me to take over," he said. The paper bore Richard's signature, too perfect, too steady. My heart froze. Richard hadn't written clearly in months. This wasn't real. I whispered, "This isn't from our family lawyer." Darren pressed on. He was lucid. He wanted this. "A developer is offering $7 million. Mom, you'll be cared for." $7 million. Concrete over blossoms. Profit over memory. My voice cracked. "You're talking about selling your father's life's work." Darren's reply was cold. "Be reasonable, Mom. The orchard can't last forever." I felt a fire rise within me, a fury long buried. I looked at them, my children, and said with a calm that shook even me, "Show me the will." They pushed it closer. I didn't touch it. Instead, I rose. "We'll talk tomorrow." But deep down, I knew. That night, I lay awake in the bed Richard and I once shared, listening to the orchard's whisper through the farmhouse walls. Every sound was familiar. What had become foreign was the silence in my children's hearts. By morning, they were waiting, coats on, suitcases packed. Darren's voice was brisk. "We packed some essentials for you. Let's drive to Sunnyvale today, just to look." My reply was steady. "I'm not going anywhere." But he only checked his watch. "Mom, the paperwork is done. The sale is closing next week." Darren insisted. "It's time you let go." His words were knives. This was my home, my life, my legacy. I looked at him, but I no longer saw the boy who once ran through apple rows with laughter. I saw a man who saw me as a burden. "I need my medication," I said softly, "and some family photos." Samantha nodded, relieved. "Take whatever you want, Mom." Upstairs, I did not cry. Instead, I reached behind the medicine cabinet where Richard once hid a secret panel. There, I pulled out my passport and the original deed to 20 acres of land, purchased in my maiden name long ago. Land with water rights, land no one knew about. I tucked it in my purse. My hands trembled, but my heart felt lighter. When I came back downstairs, Darren asked, "Ready?" I smiled faintly. "Yes, I whispered. We drove past fields beginning to bloom, past the school, past the library where I once read to children. My heart ached. Yet instead of turning toward Sunnyvale, Darren veered onto a remote road. The silence grew thick. Then he stopped on a gravel shoulder, beside an empty field. His voice was casual, almost cruel. This is where you get off, Mom. The house and business are ours now. Samantha's smile faltered. Darren, what are you doing? She'll contest the will. Darren replied coldly. This is cleaner. He opened my door. My suitcase sat at my feet. And just like that, they left me on the side of the road with nothing, or so they thought. The car vanished into dust. I stood there, the wind tugging at my coat. Yet I wasn't broken. I wasn't afraid. I was free. With every step I took toward town, I carried not just my purse, but my purpose. My flats weren't meant for gravel roads, but I walked anyway, the sun warming my shoulders. With each step, I remembered Richard's voice. Always keep a safety net, Eleanor. And I had. Those 20 acres held the orchard's only water source. Without it, no irrigation. Without irrigation, no orchard. My children thought they had cornered me, but they didn't know the soil beneath their feet. They underestimated legacy. They underestimated me. And I was only beginning. After nearly 2 hours, blisters burning, I reached the edge of town. Miller's grocery stood just as it always had. I sat on the bench outside, looking like nothing more than a tired old woman with a suitcase. Ray Miller stepped out, wiping his apron. Mrs. Grace, he said gently. Are you all right? You look pale. I smiled faintly. Just resting, Ray. It's been a long day. His eyes softened. You need anything? His kindness nearly undid me. I could use a phone, I whispered. He led me inside, past shelves of peaches and flour, into his small office. I dialed a number from memory. Harold Jennings, our family lawyer. His voice came quick. Eleanor, I've been trying to reach you. We expected you at the will reading. My hand trembled. What reading? His pause confirmed it. Darren presented a will, but it didn't match Richard's last file. My voice steadied. I need your help. And discretion. You'll have both, Harold said firmly. Meet me at my office in 1 hour. I hung up and turned to Ray. Do you sell prepaid phones? He nodded. I'll take one. And water. He refused payment. On the house, Mrs. Grace. Richard was a good man. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not now. Outside, the world looked unchanged. But within me, a storm brewed. I was not finished. Not by far. I still had truth. Harold's office sat above the library, in an old house with tall windows. His secretary gasped when she saw me, but I only smiled faintly. Harold rose as I entered, his eyes sharper than ever. Tell me everything, he urged. So I did. I told him about the funeral, the false will, the betrayal, and even the roadside abandonment. His face grew darker with each word, but he never interrupted. He only listened, as though gathering every drop of truth. When I finished, I opened my purse and placed a heavy fireproof box on his desk. Inside lay the deed to those 20 acres, land Richard and I once called our safety net. Harold examined it, his voice reverent. This isn't just land, Eleanor. This is power. With the water rights, the developer cannot move forward. Relief swept through me like a tide. I want my home back, I whispered. Harold nodded firmly. And we will make them understand. By the next morning, Harold had filed an emergency injunction to freeze the sale. A courier delivered legal notices to the developer, warning them that land and water rights were incomplete. Within hours, their deal with Darren and Samantha crumbled. Developers do not like lawsuits. They do not like uncertainty. Harold leaned back, smiling faintly. They'll back out. I whispered. They thought I had nothing. But I had everything they forgot to. That evening, my prepaid phone buzzed with a message from Samantha. Her words dripped with panic. Mom, please call me. Darren's freaking out. We didn't know about that land. Can we fix this? Fix this. As if betrayal could be smoothed over like spilled wine. My hand trembled, but not from weakness. I didn't reply. Later, Darren called Harold directly, demanding answers. Harold calmly told him. All matters are now in legal channels. For once, my children were powerless. They're realizing, Harold said gently, that they miscalculated. I looked at him, my voice steady. They thought my silence was weakness, but it was strength all along. Outside his window, I saw young lovers walking hand in hand, unaware of the storm unraveling just across the street. I envied their innocence. Yet in my heart, I carried something deeper than romance, the fierce love of a woman reclaiming her worth. The orchard was not just land. It was soul. I rented a modest apartment above the bakery in town. The morning smelled of cinnamon and bread, the afternoons filled with light spilling onto my balcony. It wasn't the farmhouse Richard and I built, but it was mine. I bought potted herbs, placed a rocking chair by the window, and found peace in small beginnings. At night, I listened not to betrayal but to the laughter from children below. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't in years: freedom. On Wednesdays, I taught quilting at the community center. On weekends, I held gardening workshops at the library. Teenagers came, retirees came, even young couples hoping to start their own farms. They didn't come for profit. They came for wisdom. I spoke softly, but they leaned in close, listening to every word about soil, water, and patience. Farming is love, I told them, a love that asks for time and faith. And in their eyes, I saw Richard's legacy live on. Weeks passed. The developer pulled out entirely, unwilling to fight a battle they could not win. The forge was formally challenged in court, frozen under suspicion. Darren and Samantha's reputations withered in their bright cities. Yet I did not gloat. I did not send cruel words. Revenge was not my language. Truth was, and truth had spoken loudly enough. The orchard still stood, blooming in spring. Each blossom whispered, "You are still here. You are still strong." One afternoon, I walked past the orchard. The blossoms shimmered pink and white against the sky. My breath caught. This land had seen decades of my footsteps, my prayers, my love, and it still stood untouched. I smiled, not with bitterness, but with quiet pride. They had tried to erase me, but I remained. The orchard remained. Love remained. And in that moment, I realized strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply refuses to fall. In time, I donated the water rights to the local cooperative, a trust for young farmers who dreamed of orchards like ours. They would use it, not sell it. They would care for the trees as Richard once did. This was my gift to the future, my way of saying love lasts longer than betrayal. Watching those young hands plant new saplings, I felt my heart swell. It was as if Richard was smiling through them, blessing every root. My children stayed silent. There were no visits, no warm apologies, only whispers of their downfall reaching me through neighbors. Yet I did not harden my heart. I did not wish them ruin. I only wished they would learn what they had forgotten. Love is not a transaction, and family is not an inheritance to be traded. Betrayal had cut deep, but forgiveness was not impossible. I just knew I could not open my arms until truth returned first. One evening, Samantha called again. Her voice cracked. "Mom, can we talk?" I closed my eyes, hearing the same tone she once used as a child after breaking a vase. But this was not childhood. This was deliberate betrayal. "You made your choices," I replied quietly. "Now you must live with them." There was silence on the line, then soft sobbing. I listened, but I did not bend. Because love without respect is not love at all. It is chains. The nights grew warmer, spring shifting toward summer. I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching stars prick the sky. Alone, yes, but not lonely. For the first time in decades, I was living for myself, not for expectation, not for someone else's dreams. The orchard still stood. The land was safe. My name was still on the deed. And my story, my quiet, powerful story, was no longer hidden in shadows. It was mine to tell. Sometimes neighbors asked me, "How did you find strength?" I smiled and said, "By remembering who I was before life tried to silence me. Before I was a wife, a mother, or a widow, I was Eleanor Grace, a woman with her own hands, her own dreams, her own power. Betrayal taught me that silence is not surrender. It is strategy. And when the time comes, the quiet can shake the earth more than thunder ever could. I often thought back to that gravel road, standing alone with a suitcase I did not pack, abandoned by my own children. That moment should have broken me, but it didn't. Instead, it carved me into something sharper, wiser, stronger. Betrayal did not destroy me, it revealed me. And I knew then that life has strange ways of teaching. Sometimes, what feels like the end is simply the beginning of your true story. To anyone who listens now, I want to say this. If you've ever been underestimated, cast aside, or told this is where you get off, remember, you still have your worth. Do not leave it behind. Walk with purpose. Walk with quiet power. Even if your steps are slow, even if your heart aches, walk anyway, because the ground beneath you knows your strength, even if others have forgotten it. And one day, they will hear it too. Love is not loyalty without question. Being a mother does not mean enduring betrayal in silence. And family is not measured by who shares your blood, but by who respects your heart. My orchard still stands as proof. It blooms because I protected it. And in every blossom, I hear Richard's laughter. In every root, I feel my own strength. Betrayal may wound, but it does not have to define you. You can still rise, still love, still live. I chose peace over revenge, truth over silence, dignity over despair. And in doing so, I discovered something profound, that even in heartbreak, beauty remains. That even after betrayal, love survives. My story is not just about loss. It is about reclamation, about a woman who was underestimated, who rose quietly, who remembered her worth and refused to let it go. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is the greatest romance of all, falling in love with your own strength. So now, I sit in my rocking chair, overlooking a world still blooming, and I whisper to anyone who will listen, never forget who you are. If you've been hurt, if you've been betrayed, if you've been abandoned, remember, your voice is still yours. Your story still matters. And when you tell it, it might just save someone else. This is my story. The orchard still stands. My life is mine again. And I am Eleanor Grace.